Welcome, everybody. Here we gather at Manor Road United Church with an exciting speaker today who will be introduced by over to Susan Johnson.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. We welcome Anyika Mark from Black Urbanism Toronto. They are dedicated to helping the Black neighborhoods to optimize themselves. So please take it away as soon as you're ready.
Sorry, there's a lot of, I live at Mount Dennis, so they're building the West Park, they're expanding the West Park Hospital. So there's always construction going on. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm so honored to be here. So like Susan said, my name is Anika. I am the Director of Communications for Black Urbanism TO, and I have been organizing with my family, I'm gonna call it my family, since 2018. I have a presentation for you all. I think I might need host access.
Let me make you co-host, 1 second.
Thank you.
And then let me also spotlight you so we can, good, perfect. Okay, now you're spotlit. And then I think I made you co-host, rock and roll. Okay, good.
Incredible. So let me share my screen. Can folks see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, all right.
Let's wait from the start. So us, Black Urbanism TO, we were founded in 2018, as I'd said. What you don't really see here is Romaine Baker and Dane Williams. They are co-founders. And we're all from Little Jamaica, so the Eglinton Avenue West area. And that's where we're focusing a lot of our work. But for us, Black Urbanism TO is really about Black neighborhoods, right? Making sure that Black communities can be a part of the processes of development, of, just general revitalization, because, Toronto is going through a lot of different constructions, and we know that a lot of Black communities are not in the forefront of those conversations, but that they're very prominent in very specific communities like Jane Finch, like Rexdale, like Regent Park. And so in 2018, Romaine and Dane had went to the same university, Brock University. And so they had been organizing together for Black undergrad students. They came back to, Toronto. Brock is in Niagara Falls, St. Catharines. They came back to Toronto and they visited Little Jamaica. And Romaine lives in Little Jamaica with his family, and Dane's grandmother lives at Oakwood and Vaughan. So it's always been a community that has been home for us. I also went to Oakwood Collegiate, so we are so familiar with the area. So Romaine and Dane, they went to Little Jamaica, and at this time, the construction was very much underway. So a lot of the Black businesses had either shut down or relocated. And so Romaine and Dane originally wanted to do a documentary of the area because Little Jamaica just has a lot of really rich Black, Caribbean, and Canadian history, really. And so they wanted to make a documentary of the area. But as they went around and they started talking to Black business owners, they realized that the culture was still there, that Black business owners wanted to stay in that area, that it meant something to them, and that the legacy of Little Jamaica was important for their business. And so instead of just making a documentary on, what it used to be, Romaine and Dane were like, let's do something about it now. So that's kind of how Black urbanism came to be. And so, like our mission statement says, we aim to increase the participation of Black people in community development to advance the collective cultural, economic, and social interests in the neighborhood. So really, we want to make sure, like I was saying earlier, that Black communities are a part of these processes. So our timeline, I kind of went through this a little bit, but in 2019, we officially kicked off our consultation. So in the area of Eglinton, there was a very clear plan. It's called the Eglinton Connects Plan. And one of the major things that we noticed was that no Black business owners or residents were consulted in order for that plan to be made, but that Eglinton Connects had a completely new plan for the area. And so what we decided was, or I guess just as an organization, we decided we need to step in and hold consultations and figure out what our community is saying. Do they know about Eglinton Connects? What is their input? What is their insight as to how they want their neighborhood to develop, right? Because Little Jamaica has been in existence since the 60s. It originated from mass Caribbean migration, where a lot of Jamaican people, Trinidadian people, just a lot of Caribbean immigrants coming to Canada. Our immigration system very much favored Caribbean immigrants at the time because they were going to come and do domestic work. and they were also going to work in the railroads. And so with that spirit, we get a lot of that influence in specifically Little Jamaica. We call it Little Jamaica because there was a really big influence of Jamaican immigrants there. And also a really, really big cultural piece was reggae. So reggae was first brought to Canada in Little Jamaica, which is such a beautiful, interesting history because reggae as a genre is very new. It kind of originated in the 1960s out of political resistance to Jamaican government. And so that translation from Jamaica to Toronto was really influential, very impactful. And so people like Bob Marley would come to Little Jamaica and, record music. And we have some of the first reggae artists from Canada, like literally had studio space in Little Jamaica. And when you go to Little Jamaica, there is also we have Treasure Isle Records. So I think that's one of the last vinyl stores standing, but with the uptake in reggae, there was also that uptake in vinyl, that there was a lot of different vinyl stores in the area. And so when you go to Little Jamaica, what you'll really feel a Caribbean vibe. There's a lot of hair stores, there's a lot of food stores, and there's also a lot of clothing, which are all three really prominent parts of Caribbean culture. And I think that it really speaks to the influence that Black communities had in that area. We're also thinking about Canada in the 1960s, 70s, 80s as well, very segregated. And so Little Jamaica also becomes a space where Black people and Black communities can go and purchase their goods, right? If you can go and get your shea butter, you can go and get your jerk chicken that you feel like is from your home in Little Jamaica. So I say all of that to say, we decided that it was really important that the business owners that had been there for years be consulted about the area that they're in. And so in 2019, we went forward with two major consultations. So we did the first one at Eglinton and Oakwood. So we talked to those residents in that area. There's a really dense population of Black businesses between Allen Road and Eglinton to about Dufferin and Eglinton, really dense concentration. But what a lot of folks don't know is that Little Jamaica actually extends to Keele and Eglinton as well. So when you go to the Keele and Eglinton area, you'll see Tennille's Patties. Tennille's is actually a really iconic patty store. And you'll also see a number of little Black businesses. But again, affordability in the area has really seen a lot of our Black businesses close. And the pandemic has literally exacerbated that. But nevertheless, we still decided that we were going to make sure that we had one in Keele and Eglinton within the York Southwestern area. And so we held two major consultations, one of them in Eglinton, Oakwood, the other one in, I think it was Keele and Eglinton. Yeah. So we held those two major consultations. And what we realized was that Black business owners had no idea about the Eglinton Connects plan, that their city councilors had not spoken to them, had not talked to them about the process, that any consultations that had gone on, Black businesses weren't really a part of. And Black residents, therefore, as well, because we had a lot of residents come out and kind of vocalize their concerns about affordability. A lot of business owners also used to live in the area, but because of, just again, like the affordability, prices going up, the Eglinton LRT has been huge as well. A lot of business owners have moved out of the area. So what we decided was that we were going to partner. We partnered with a number of organizations for our consultation. But our major partner was the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit. And they really wanted for us to do a report so that we can kind of document and archive these experiences and the insights of Black business owners that weren't necessarily documented in the first round. So that is essentially what we did. That is essentially what we did. And in February 2020 or July 2020, I'm pretty sure it's February 2020. But anyways, we officially launched the Black Business Conversations Report. Really, really important document that outlines a lot of different recommendations that doesn't just extend to the city, it extends to Metrolinx, right, and the Crosstowns project. It also extends to BIAs, right, because BIA stands for Business Improvement Associations. They have a really big part to play in, the preservation of businesses, the advancement of businesses, and just the well-being of the area in general. And so we had a number of recommendations for these different entities to do better for Black businesses, to make sure that their insight their insight influences the processes. And so it was a really, really full report. I had the pleasure of being a co-author as well. We made a number of reports or recommendations, and it has really jump-started a lot of the work that you're seeing being done now. So in September 2020, we approached the U of T Master of Planning. U of T has a new, I'm trying to think about what it's called. It's not really a department. It's kind of an extension of U of T called the School of Cities. And the School of Cities mandate really is to take in the urban space and to really delve into different political issues that exist within the urban space. And so we worked with them to essentially understand the feasibility of a commercial community land trust. Community land trusts are essentially a group of community stakeholders that come together and work with the city to own land. And for us, that's really important because a lot of Black communities don't get the opportunity to own the spaces that they're in. And that's been a huge concern with a lot of the Black business owners that we're, talking with now, is ownership is a huge issue, right? I think a lot of Black business owners and Black communities in general are coming from financial disadvantages. And so their businesses really is going off of survival. What is the revenue today? But a lot of folks haven't really been thinking of that long-term planning of ownership. And so we really wanted to make sure that, with the pandemic and the Edmonton LRT, that we could find a way to give businesses the time to save money. And one of the ways that we could do that was through a land trust. And also the land trust is all about preserving the businesses as well, right? Because a land trust will allow us to be, not gatekeepers, I don't want to say that because that implies a power dynamic, but it gives us the ability to influence developer conversations in a way that we might not necessarily before. So it's been an incredible relationship that we've had with U of T. They've really helped us map out the way that Eglinton looks and the way that, Black businesses fall, affordability, affordable housing, all of that incredible stuff. So yes, so that's been one thing that we've really been working on is our commercial land trust. We were really inspired by two major people. It was Parkdale Community Land Trust that actually is very much functional in the Parkdale community. And we were also inspired by some organizing in LA, because in LA, there is a lot of dense Black businesses as well. And there's a lot of gentrification going on in that area as well. And so we had the opportunity to speak to some organizers about the ways that they're trying to preserve their communities and Black businesses. And so during those conversations, we really decided that the land trust was the best way for us to go as an organization. So especially to preserve Black businesses. So in October 2020, we officially passed, well, I can't say we because we're not city council, but we worked with Councillor Josh Matlow. He is a councillor for Ward 12, Toronto St. Paul's. And he helped us, or we consulted with him. We had conversations at length about a cultural district plan and a planning framework study for Little Jamaica. So basically the motion is called Black Owned and Operated Businesses and Preserving the Cultural Heritage of Eglinton Avenue West, Little Jamaica. I'll definitely send all of these materials, our report, the motion, all of that to the organizers so that you all can read it on your own free time. And I'll also leave my contact information. So if you have any questions about any of the points that I've made so far, I would love to kind of chat with you a little bit more about it. But this motion was passed in October 2020, really monumental because the cultural district plan is not just looking at preserving businesses or giving Little Jamaica heritage designation. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about heritage designation in the next couple slides. But heritage designation, the cultural district plan looks at this holistic understanding of how do we preserve Little Jamaica, but also how do we keep Black community and Black residents in the areas that they've built. And so the cultural district plan really focuses on a number of different things. I'm wondering, I think as I go on in the slide, we'll kind of explain more of the motion. So I'll skip to the next one. And so March 2021, we had the first ever town hall for Little Jamaica. It was an interesting event. I think a lot of our community had wanted to have more say and just more memory sharing, talking about what Little Jamaica means to them and wanting to be a little bit more part of the processes. But we officially launched Little Jamaica Initiative in March 2021. So very, very recently. And then because of this conversation, actually, I think one of the things that was brought up was that heritage designation wasn't enough to save Little Jamaica. And a lot of our community had taken that as, oh, they don't want to give us heritage, they don't, want to preserve Black communities in that way. And so what Councillor Matlow did was he put together a heritage designation motion specifically so that, calling on the city and specifically the Heritage Department to go ahead with the heritage study that was passed unanimously in council on April 2021. So Little Jamaica will actually be one of the first ethnic communities to be surveyed for heritage designation, which is a really interesting concept because when you think about all of the different littles or the different diaspora communities in the city, the fact that Little Jamaica is going to be the first one to be legislated as an ethnic community is really monumental. And I think with the cultural district plan as well, it really gives Toronto a framework as to how to preserve businesses moving forward. We see this with Chinatown as well, that Chinatown is being gentrified out, and organizers are really fighting for that ethnic feel. And Chinatown is a really important part of Toronto's history. It's a really important part of Asian immigrants' history as well. And so we're really excited that, not only for Little Jamaica, but to really jumpstart conversations as to how Toronto can really honor the ethnic diasporas that have contributed so much to our local domestic, just visiting Chinatown and whatnot, but also our international market, right? We're known to be a multicultural country. And so I think it's really incredible that we're going to start to get this legislated because that is what's going to make these communities sustainable. I mean, there's a number of factors to make communities sustainable, but I think legislation really does help. It does really help in the process. So these are us. This is our goals fundamentally. This is us really in a nutshell as Black Urbanism TO. We really want to be involved in reshaping our neighborhoods. I think it's really important for me personally, like I was saying earlier, I live at Mount Dennis, and there's a lot of gentrification going on in this area as well. And I say gentrification, not to, bash, modernization or, this idea that we are getting transit, but I think just in general, when I speak to gentrification, I really speak to the profit first mindset, right? That we're thinking more about how much money this community is going to be made off of later, instead of how can we be advancing the communities that live there today. And I've personally been involved in a lot of consultation. So I am seeing a lot more residents and ethnic people being involved in these processes. But, we still have a ways to go as a city. As Black Urbanism TO, one of our major things is to support Black business, to preserve them and restore them for our communities. I'll speak a little bit more as to the types of activities that go towards supporting Black businesses. But really our number one thing is that we know businesses by name, right? That we go in, that we support their businesses with our dollars, that we go in and we speak to them about what their needs are, and that we create a genuine relationship with them so that when we're speaking for them or when we're speaking on their behalf, we know 100% what their insight is. We are very much an organization that doesn't want to speak for people, right? And I think a lot of, just in general, there's a lot of people that get spoken for. And for us, it's really important that anything that comes out of our organization comes directly from business owners and from residents themselves that live in the area. And it also really helps us personally that we all live in the area. So we also have that firsthand understanding of what we want to see and the vision we want for our community. So like I was just kind of saying, community and authentic community consultation is huge for us. That involves understanding community needs and amplifying their voices. And placekeeping, social, economic, and cultural preservations of our community. I think this is a really important part because, in our history, in Canadian history especially, we can see the actual attack on Black communities. We can look at that in Halifax's Africville. We can look at that in Little Burgundy in Montreal. There's also Hogan's Alley in Vancouver. These are all places that have been kind of run through with different transit or, for this need of control over Black communities. And so I think for us, it's really important that we are at the forefront of these conversations so that our communities don't get bowled over and that our history isn't rewritten in the city. So this is us, just us on Instagram and, just us in the community. This gentleman down here, that's me, and that's Romain. He is the co-founder. And that gentleman right there is Jay Douglas. He is also in the mural. He's the one in the green suit right behind us. He is an incredible reggae artist. And he was one of those reggae artists that was also born from Little Jamaica and is a big, 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 big supporter of the area and all of the initiatives that we're doing. So he's been really fundamental. The second picture you see there is our consultation that happened at Eglinton and Oakwood, where we were talking about affordability, about the Eglinton Connects plan. And then over there is Johanna and Dane. Dane is the other co-founder. And this is just us in the community, being at events, making sure that we're very well known, but also making sure that we're developing really authentic relationships so that we can always come back and have that sense of community where people can share their concerns and we can be able to amplify those in the ways that they deserve. So our primary area of work, convening community members, partners, and stakeholders to develop a holistic plan which outlines the path to achieving social, economic, and cultural preservation, developing programs and frameworks to implement the community-informed vision, and advocating for the needs of the community by providing recommendations and fact-based solutions to relevant decision makers while ensuring that impactful dialogue ensues between Black communities and those desiring to shape the neighborhoods they call home. So kind of all the things that I was speaking about before, but for us, it's really important that we are facilitating these conversations with our city council to come and speak to business owners, right? I think that that's been a really big point for us, is that, a lot more councilors are wanting to be more involved in Little Jamaica in an authentic way. And so we're really happy about that. And I think also with the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit, we can really start to develop, just really stronger relationships with our city, our city council, but the city has multiple different departments. We have come to know this. We have maybe like 8 different department heads that we're working with in the city to kind of flesh out this cultural district plan. And so our involvement with partners and stakeholders is really important for our community. So our key priorities of BUDO: support the increased participation of Black residents and business owners in planning and community development processes, secure official recognition of Little Jamaica by local BIA and City of Toronto, advocate for affordable housing in new and existing units, enhance the economic and cultural sustainability of Little Jamaica through city policies and tools, and exploring opportunities for community ownership of land and commercial spaces. So yeah, kind of all of the things I kind of talked about, but the official recognition of Little Jamaica is really important. If you go to Little Jamaica right now, or if you go to Eglinton, what you'll see in some of the some of the street signs, it says International Market, right? And that was an initiative that was spearheaded by the local BIA a couple of years ago. And for us, we really want to see International Market turn to something that recognizes Little Jamaica. That's really important for us, because International Market assumes or kind of rewrites this history that Eglinton West was a predominantly Black neighborhood. And it really erases the history of Little Jamaica. So working with our BIA is extremely important. And there's 3 different BIAs that represent Little Jamaica. And so, having the dialogue with them is extremely important. Advocating for affordable housing, as you guys as everybody knows, there's a lot of new condo development, a lot of new residential construction going on in the city of Toronto, and Eglinton is one of those sites. And so we really want to make sure that, while we're advocating for Black businesses, in order for businesses to thrive, there needs to be the people to support them. And in order for us to support residents in that area, we have to address the affordable housing concerns. And so one of the ways that our commercial land trust is going to go about doing that is to really be advocating for percentages of units being affordable. That's really important to sustaining Black businesses, but also just sustaining Black communities as a whole. So this is our consultation. I kind of spoke a little bit to this, but this was the poster that we had when we went to the York Southwestern area of it. As a part of the City of Toronto's Housing TO 2020-2030 Action Plan, Black Urbanism TO engaged residents who identify as Black living in Ward 5, York Southwestern, Ward 8, Eglinton Lawrence, and Ward 12, Toronto St. Paul's. So those are all of the wards that Little Jamaica kind of falls into. The objective of the consultation was to capture the stories and experiences of Black residents living in these two neighborhood areas to ensure that their housing experiences and proposed solutions are reflected in the City of Toronto's Housing TO 2020-2030 Action Plan. This was the second consultation. So like I explained, we did one in Keele and Eglinton, and this was the one that we did at Eglinton and Oakwood. So the report details the compounding issue. So this is a little bit more about the report that we wrote. This report details the compounding issues faced by Little Jamaica businesses due to ongoing construction, future development, and the current COVID-19 pandemic, as well as selected recommendations to address them. This report and the recommendations within has been developed through numerous conversations with Black business owners, discussions, and events organized with allied groups, as well as those research of secondary sources. So that's us kind of going and doing the policy recommendations and going through academic literature. All of that stuff has been really important for us filling out the report. And as you can see, we have some partners at the top. So we have the Black Business Professionals Association, the Parkdale Neighborhood Land Trust, and Open Architecture. I kind of spoke about the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit, but Open Architecture was really influential in helping us really create a vision of like a diagram really of like what our vision was for Little Jamaica. So they were really influential in building that out for us. This is what our report is. Some of our major recommendations from the report was BIA relations, governance, and representation. So one of the major things that we had heard from business owners during the consultations was that they didn't have enough, that their BIA wasn't working with them in the ways that they should, right? And that there was just a number of concerns that Black business owners had. And so we, in our report, we really emphasized the need for better representation for Black businesses in the board. And just in general, changing the different governance styles so that Black business owners can be more a part of the way that the BIA functions. Because as much as the city and Metrolinx is a part of this conversations, our BIAs play a really critical role. So we also made a lot of recommendations around the Eglinton LRT, including financial compensation, moratorium on commercial evictions, and relaxations on parking. So the financial compensation part, still something we're working on. Councillor Cole had put forward a motion in City Council, also calling on Metrolinx to financially compensate business owners. MPP Jill Andrew, who is the provincial member for Toronto St. Paul's, she also put forward a motion to the provincial government for businesses to be financially compensated. Really big part because when you speak to business owners, a lot, especially the Eglinton LRT, has not only impacted their revenue, right? So the ability for consumers to come by and shop at Little Jamaica, but there's Jason, he's a barber, and his store is right next to the Oakwood subway station. His building his store rather, has flooded 9 times. 9 times he's seen flooding in his building or in his store, and Metrolinx is consistently deflecting, right? His business is right next to the Oakwood station, right? And he's talked about the destruction and the damage that it's caused, but Metrolinx continuously deflects. We also have Monica's Beauty Cosmetics. She has been in the area for over 40 years. She is one of the only business owners to own her actual building. One of her major concerns was that the construction actually shakes her building, which causes a lot of infrastructure damage that Metrolinx, again, deflects and won't really speak to her about. And so now she has to find a way to make up for, the fact that this construction is really damaging the infrastructure of her building. So financial compensation is really, really critical. Moratorium of commercial evictions is also really big because as we try to preserve these businesses, we want to make sure that they can at least stay in their spaces long enough for that to happen. Relaxations on parking is also critical because a lot of our support for Little Jamaica comes from, outside of the GTA, but other places in Toronto. And so, when you go on to Eglinton, there is very limited parking. And we have heard from so many residents that it's a huge, huge, huge concern for them even coming to support Little Jamaica. COVID-19 recovery policies need to account for systemic challenges systemic challenges Black business owners face and be focused on building long-term economic sustainability. I would say that this goes for a lot of small businesses across the province, but I think it's really important that we provide that extra lens to Black business owners who are at a double disadvantage. Economic development and planning, the creation of an economic development strategy, strategic plan and planning framework studies specific to Little Jamaica, and reanimating the space through cultural events. So cultural events, I'm not sure if you folks have ever had the opportunity to be in Eglinton in the 1990s, but there used to be Kitty Caravana that ran from the Allen to Dufferin, I think, or maybe a little bit farther than that. But Kitty Caravana was one of those huge cultural festivals that brought in a lot of revenue for business owners. And if you look at other communities, so when we have the Taste of the Danforth or we have the Salsa on St. Clair, when those cultural festivals happen, business owners actually make enough money in those 2-3 days to sustain themselves for a year, which is huge, right? And so when Kitty Caravana was taken away from Eglinton, it really impacted the revenue stream for business owners and their ability to make up, the fact that their produce, their suppliers, all that type of stuff. Kitty Caravana was huge. So bringing cultural festivals and cultural events back into that space is going to be really, really important and helpful for business owners. So the Black Business Grant, this has been a really incredible journey. We partnered with another youth-led grassroots organization called Reclaim, Rebuild Eglinton West, a group of young people who love their neighborhood, are from the neighborhood, and were really upset by the way that the Black businesses were deteriorating. And so they created this GoFundMe, and we partnered with them because we have, really substantial relationships to business owners in the area. And through this grant, we've actually been able to support 6 business owners, which has been absolutely incredible. We've been able to help them with rent, with utility costs, with suppliers costs, and we've heard so many good things from them about, the fact that this grant has been extremely helpful. Which is really incredible and really important. So yeah, I'll kind of read this here, but the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated this economic hardship and set Black communities even further behind. Black Urbanism TO partnered with Reclaim, Rebuild Eglinton West to support Black businesses along Eglinton Avenue West, as many of the business owners have been unable to pay their rent, invest in themselves, and prepare for the future. The purpose of the Rebuild Eglinton West was to create a grant fund to support startups and existing businesses. And Reclaim Rebuild has actually expanded their scope to, focus on affordable housing. And so they're kind of tackling that, massive concern about affordability in the area, which we also think is great because it's a group of young people being a part of these conversations. Yeah, this is just a little bit more about us. These are some of the consultations that we went forward with. You see the Romaine and Dane, that was when we presented at the launch from the City of Toronto. Oh my goodness, let me know if I'm like off on time, because
You're amazing, keep going. Okay. You rock.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, so these are some really important alliances. I've kind of spoken a little bit to them. One of the ones I didn't really get to focus on was the Jamaican Canadian Association. We've actually donated to their walkathon, and we'll be walking, me, Dane, and our urban planner, Ruth, will be walking in support of Black business owners on June 27th. And yeah, Jamaican Canadian Association has been a really important part of our commercial land trust process. And we're also really honored to work with them because they have been a huge part of Jamaican legacies in the City of Toronto. There's a very, very large immigrant population, Jamaican immigrant population in the city. And we can, it's almost very clear based off of our cultural landscape, I would say. The slang of Toronto is very much based in Jamaican culture. So it was really important for us to collaborate with them. And they also they work with a lot of just Jamaican families and Jamaican neighborhoods throughout the city. So really important organization for us to work with. I'm pretty sure this logo, I forgot to ask Dane whose logo this was, but I'm pretty sure it's Toronto Community Benefits Network, which has been a really big part of, walking us through community benefits and that understanding. So this logo right here is the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit, the City of Toronto, of course. And U of T, of course, really important entities that we've been developing, and just really important relationships that we've been developing since 2018. And this is us. You can connect with us on all of these different platforms. So we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we are on Facebook. Our name, thank goodness, is one of the only ones ever. So Black Urbanism TO, it's on the social media sites as it comes. And this is our email. I'll make sure to share all of this information with our organizers after. Again, our whole entire organization is all about authentic community consultation. So we really want to hear from every single person, no matter what their ethnic background is, no matter how they identify. We really want to hear from you because like I was saying earlier, we find it important not only just to preserve Little Jamaica, but to promote this understanding that ethnic communities have provided so much to our city, to the makeup of our cities, to our cultural landscape. And so it's really important for us that we can solidify one of the first Black communities in the country, but also just making sure that ethnic communities are able to be a part of the areas that they've built. That is just a really, really important part of our organization. So consultation from you, your insights, they mean everything to us because we take it into account and we make sure that it's not just, Black communities that are like, we want Little Jamaica. We want folks to really understand the value that Little Jamaica can provide for the whole entire city of Toronto, because we see so much value in the Chinatowns, in, Greektown, in Little Italy. All of these places are extremely important for residents and for just community care. So yeah, like I was saying, your insight is valuable. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. I think that's it for us. This was us on the Brandon Gonez show. I'm not sure if you folks have heard of Brandon Gonez, but he used to be a CP24 reporter and has since left them to start his own news YouTube channel. And so we had the opportunity to discuss with him, what Little Jamaica means to us and why it's important that it's preserved. Brandon Gonez is also of Jamaican descent, so it was really important for him to highlight that narrative of the community and make sure that there's ways that we can preserve it in the mainstream. So that was really exciting. Brandon Gonez is an incredible person. And yeah, I think that's it for me. I would love to answer all of your questions, and thank you all so much again for letting us present. And I hope to connect with all of you later.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, you're amazing. When are you running for mayor? Okay.
I actually want to start at school board. I want to go from a school board level because
Trustee, you go up. Yeah.
Yes, you have to climb. I think it's really important. Like this one of the reasons why I love Black Urbanism TO is because we really want to develop community first, right? Mm-hmm. If I was to run for a government, I would want for every single person to feel like they trust me, that I know them personally, and that they know that I'm going to represent them well in the mainstream, So I want to start at TDSB, go to city council, and prime minister is next.
There you go.
Yes, please.
So I'm sure there's a million questions. I already have many of my own, but let me not jump the queue. But so just put your hand up. It's sometimes easier if you have a question. There's Susan Johnson. Okay, over to Susan.
The usual one is, how can we help?
Yes, such a great question. So I think the word of mouth for us has been really big. So sharing our GoFundMe has been huge. Like I said, we were able to support 6 business owners. I think right now our goal for the GoFundMe is about 600,000, but it's really big because that is really the need. And I would even say that $600,000 is low, right? Because when in one of our Google forms, we had asked business owners how much it would take for them to own their store, and they said about $1 million. So $600,000 is small, but I think supporting the GoFundMe is one of the first ways that you can support. It doesn't necessarily have to be that you donate yourself. You sharing it with folks that can donate or are willing to will go a long way for all the business owners. The second thing that I'll say is go out and support business owners. Edmonton Avenue West has an incredible food, and I'm not even just saying that because I organized for Little Jamaica. The food is absolutely incredible. We also got a new Black business owner who is selling ice cream, and yeah, it's really incredible stuff, cakes, everything. So I would say go out and support, tell your friends to support Little Jamaica, and make it a point to go out and to buy from them, because that's one of the ways that we're going to keep, the legacy alive. And I think just ultimately having really important, like positive conversations about Little Jamaica with people. I think, not to get into like the historical, the history of things, but Canada has had a reputation for being defensive about Jamaican immigrants. There's a really big history of that. There was patty wars with Jamaica, back in the day. And so, changing the narrative about Jamaicans and Jamaica in Toronto is going to be really critical. But I think ultimately just speaking to people that about Little Jamaica, letting them know that it exists, that, we're working to save it, also really goes a long way. And I think there's also going to be a lot more opportunities for folks to get super, super involved later as we develop the commercial land trust a little bit more. We're hoping to launch that in July. August. We're hoping to launch it over there. So we'll definitely be reaching out more to community and like making sure that you guys can be involved in that. And we also just launched, well, not us per se, but there is an independent urban planning firm called CP Planning. And then I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the Oakwood Vaughan Neighborhood Action Partnership. They're organized in Oakwood Vaughan. They have come together to do an affordable housing working group, so that they can actually start to target, the different developments that are going on in the area and start to really influence those conversations for them to be affordable. So I said a lot of things, but 4 major ways is the GoFundMe, to go out and support business owners, to talk positively and, always about Little Jamaica, and the Affordable Housing Working Group.
Okay.
I have to connect you with Richard. He's actually from Jamaica as well.
Ooh, awesome.
And so is Kimar. But because when we do the Caravan at the Manor, I think that's going to be very powerful.
Yes,
and so
I'd love to come.
a couple of things to keep in mind is, one, the model you're creating could be a model that's expanded to other ethnic communities. I think of Little Ethiopia that's having a nightmare trying to get recognition east of the Danforth, which is again another Black community, and it shouldn't happen that way. I mean, but I think historically, you probably know about Little India.
Gerard. Mm-hmm.
It was crazy. There was actually a Ku Klux Klan chapter on Gerard, and they fought back and said nuts, and they rallied together. And I thought, wow, good on them. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's one of the beauties, especially with the cultural district plan, is that it's going to be, the cultural district plan was kind of pulled from America. I think it was New York specifically. And we've had a lot of conversations with different diasporic communities in New York as well. So there's a little Caribbean, New York City. But yes, it's really important for us that it's not just a conversation about Black communities in Little Jamaica, but just in general ethnic communities, because again, like multiculturalism is the Canadian brand. And I think Canada needs to start walking that walk and really making sure that our ethnic communities can thrive in the spaces that they've built. And that also, so people feel that they belong in this country, right? I think for me, it's been really important that Little Jamaica has been there. Like I went to Oakwood. My dad went to Oakwood. My dad used to live in Oakwood and Vaughan. So it's been a place of home. Like when I was like 15, 16, going to Little Jamaica, it was like, oh, I'm gonna go get your chicken. But for me, it was genuinely more than that. Like I felt like I belonged in the larger, Toronto context. When you go downtown, it's a little bit more rigid. And there's a really, really big culture difference. But for me, it's really important that, that there are Black people and there are Black communities. And I just see Black people thriving. I think that stuff like that is really important for future generations to see.
You raise a very good point, because historically there was a Black community west of Spadina, and it started in the 1800s. But what unfortunately happened when they built New City Hall, they pushed the Chinese out of there, and the Chinese then, hello, goodbye. And then the Chinese bought the homes, and of course they went to the Four Winds. And so we lost a sort of a foci of a Black community, so it sounds like you could also help the St. Lucians and the Bajans and everybody else along the way too. Yeah.
Yes, that is also a really big conversation. And I'll also say really quickly that Bathurst and Bloor used to be a hub for Black community members as well. You wouldn't necessarily know that if you go to Bathurst and Bloor, though. I think one of the only, cultural staples of that area is a different book list, which is Ida Sadu, and she has been a champion for keeping Black histories alive in that area. But I remember when I had a conversation with my grandma, she said that she loved to go when she came from Grenada in the 80s. And one of her, all of her friends were like, we're going to go to Bathurst and Bloor, and then, so yes, the displacement of ethnic communities and Black communities specifically, right? Because historically, I would say contemporary as well, Black communities are seen as expendable, right? They're seen as, easily able to be displaced. And so, yeah, I think it's really important that, us as an organization, as young people too, right? Because we might not actually have been walking in all of these historical legacies, but we want to make sure that moving forward, future generations can be a part of communities. And you said something else. What was the second part that you said?
Let me think. Little Ethiopia, running for prime minister. No, okay, running for mayor. Let me think.
I'm going to have a whole independent party.
Helping like other Caribbean communities, I think, like the St. Lucians, the Barbadians, the Bajans.
Yes. Yes. So that has been an interesting conversation for us, right? Because we don't want to make it seem like, Eglinton Avenue West is only for Jamaicans, right? There's a bunch of different beautiful Caribbean countries that also make up Little Jamaica. I think one of the reasons why we wanted to substantiate it as Little Jamaica is because of the reggae history, right? There's just and also just the influence that Jamaicans have had on the area. I think it's important to honor that. But we have definitely been having a lot of conversations about, the different Caribbean countries. And one of the ways that we want to kind of mitigate that is to make sure that every single country is represented in public art, in street signs, in murals, so that when you come there, it doesn't just feel like it's Little Jamaica, right? But it feels like that you're at home in the Caribbean. Because when you walk along the road, you'll see grills on the sidewalk, right? And that's Caribbean culture. When you go to any Caribbean island, you just walk into the local areas, you have your people outside, you have the music blasting, you have the grills open and the chicken on the grill, and you have people lining up outside. That is very much Caribbean culture as a whole. That doesn't just speak to Jamaica specifically. So the reason why we really push for the name Little Jamaica is because we really want to honor, how much Jamaicans have provided to the cultural landscape of Toronto, and also honor that reggae was first brought to Canada in this area. And reggae is a Jamaican genre of music, really. It's kind of expanded, been exported to other places, but reggae really started with Rastas in Jamaica, kind of being, rebellious against, the Jamaican hegemony in the 60s, because that's when Jamaica got independence. But yes, we're really hoping to make sure that all Caribbean islands are reflected, because that is really important to us as well. I'm from Grenada, or my parents are from Grenada and my mom's from Trinidad. My dad's Canadian, my mom is Trinidadian. So it's really important that those other countries are reflected as well.
So where does Jane and Finch fit into all of this?
Great question. Oh my goodness.
There we go. Good stuff.
Really interesting question. So I don't think that Jane and Finch wouldn't be categorized as Little Jamaica. But Mr. Winston, who is Mr. Jane and Finch, he was actually the one that spearheaded Kitty Caravana in Eglinton, right? So the histories of Eglinton West and Jane and Finch, they are so intertwined, right? Because these are like really super prominent Black neighborhoods. I think right now the conversation of Jane and Finch is really coming down to just the same things like affordability, making sure that there's a community center. I don't think that there is necessarily the conversation about rebranding it to be a Black neighborhood per se, because I think it's a little bit more of a diverse mix there now when you go. And also there's a really big Indo-Caribbean population in Jane and Finch as well. So there's a lot of Caribbean migration in Jane and Finch, but not necessarily like distinctly Jamaican or Trinidadian, or there's like in Trinidad has a very big mix of like Indo-Caribbean and Afro-Caribbeans, right? So Jane and Finch is a little bit different in terms of the makeup. And I think that, one of the major things that organizers in that area are fighting for is affordable housing. They also are having the LRT go through that community as well. So they're also kind of pushing back against gentrification. One of the really great things that we saw recently was that the province gave them the land for the community center, the arts and cultural center. So I think that'll be a really great way for us to start not rewriting, but what's the word? Projecting the histories of what Jane and Finch is, so that we can kind of have an understanding of what communities and what ethnic legacies are there as well.
Mhm. Okay, I know across the street, we have a lot of, from my building, we have a lot of the similar murals that you were displaying from Eglinton.
Yes.
And I believe there's a little, no, not so small, but a smaller little community center for the kids across the street, which is, I think, Oakwood, not Oakwood, but I think it's called Oakwood Community Center,
Okay.
perhaps.
Oakwood
Yeah.
Community. Correct.
But it's all Toronto community housing across the street from my building. And, you know, I mean, adding all the murals has just, it's been wonderful, you know, I mean, it's inspiring.
And I think murals are so beautiful because it's always been a history of Black communities, specifically to archive ourselves in, which is one of the reasons why I'll say that we kind of get left out of these like more bureaucratic, rigid processes, is that really all of our traditions are oral, right? They're oral, they're artistic, they're creative, they're innovative, you know, and that isn't necessarily documented in the same way in like the city, or, you know, because the city has like a way to go about things so that it's kind of uniform for everybody. And so I think Black communities have kind of been like contrasted out of that based off of like how we live and what our traditions are. So murals have been a great way to kind of center that conversation and bring everyone into this conversation of culture. And there's a lot of really incredible murals about a lot of incredible people in the city in general. So yeah, we love murals. I really hope that we can do more murals after development, because I'm really nervous about, you know, what's going to happen to Reggae Lane once they decide that they have to demolish the car wash there. Or we just got a mural for Jimmy Wisdom. He was one of the first barbers to be in Eglinton. And he recently he has a mural at Eglinton. It's like near Eglinton and Dufferin. And they actually also named that street Jimmy Wisdom Way. But I'm always nervous about, you know, what's going to happen to these cultural tapestries once the development comes, once the Edmonton LRT comes, once developers, you know, start to like pick up and buy little pieces of land. So I love murals, but I really want to make sure that they're meaningful and that they can stay and that they make our community sustainable. But I love to hear that. Where do you live, Ken? Where do you live? What intersection are you closest to?
Jane and Finch. Well, Jane and Finch, I guess. I'm sort of in between Keel and Jane and Finch and Shepherd.
Yes. Okay. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Any more questions from people? Well, I would say it's beyond remarkable. We got to have you back again. Also, I'll connect you with Richard because we're organizing Caravan at the Manor. But also, we should connect again because I'm also a Rotarian. So we can fund some of the things you're talking about. Let's have another side conversation.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And also what I really want to just say, Caravan is really important because it's not just about a cultural festival, but Carnival was born out of the emancipation of slavery, right? So it originated in Trinidad. And really it was about celebrating freedom. And so that's why Caravan is, you know, personal for me is, you know, when I go to Caravan, I genuinely feel free. And so I always want to say that because I feel like, you know, people have really commercialized Caravan to be, you know, just where you know, skin out, you know, panty and bra, but really it's about freedom. It's about feeling free in your body and feeling, you know, that you're not confined by, you know, this, you know, to be kind of blunt, this kind of white supremacist structure of life. And I just wanted to say that because I love Caravan and I really want to kind of memorialize it as being the celebration of emancipation.
Wonderful. So Susan, you want to give thanks? You're muted, Susan.
Yes, thank you all for coming. I've blanked out on who we've got next week. It's
Charles Fincham. He's because part of Pride Month, he's speaking on misguided love. He's actually an openly gay Presbyterian minister who is actually from South Africa, and he's going to talk about his book that speaks about emancipation of sexuality, and very important. Very important, yes.
Wonderful. So I hope you can join us then.
So Anika, again, mayor, prime minister, well, start with mayor. Okay.
Start with mayor. Keep it small, you know, and then we'll jumpstart to the country. There's lots of work to be done everywhere. So
Just start.
Look at my vote.